go to the grocery store, you buy a gallon of milk. A portion of the money you pay for that gallon of milk is the fair tax. The grocery store, what do you have up here, Kroger's or, okay. Kroger's would collect the fair tax. They would get to keep 0.25% because we're actually gonna pay businesses to collect that money. And they would bundle that up and they would send it to the state. The state would then bundle up all the money they collect from the various businesses of the state, and they would send that into Washington. And at each step of the way, there's 0.25% that comes out. So, unlike the current system where we have to pay other people under the fair tax, the money for running the fair tax comes out of the tax itself. So that in and of itself is a bit of an advantage. The other part of it is, if you think about the shift in political power, right now, all the money goes to Washington. And Washington then sends it out in block grants or programs or projects. They give you money to build new roads, parks, recreational areas, whatever. But all the money flows through Washington. And the people in Washington control where that money goes. If you don't do what they want, you don't get the money. Under the fair tax, it's a little different. The money goes first to the state, and then the state sends the money to Washington. Well, guess what? If the state doesn't like what Washington is doing, the state now holds the money. In other words, there is a shift in political power out of Washington and back to the states, where, for those of you that remember your American civics way back when, the states were really supposed to be where the power resides for all actions and activities other than things national defense, borders, and treaties. You know, those are really the three things that Washington is supposed to be doing, not collecting money from every corner of the country and then parceling it out on the basis of political favors and cronyism. So the fair tax is not only a more efficient way of collecting the money and a more fair way of collecting the money, it's also a tremendous shift in political power, away from Washington and back to the states. Advantages of fair tax. Again, I'm hitting the high points. If you have any questions as I'm going through this, please ask. The whole reason I'm here is to answer your questions and provide information to you. We get rid of the IRS. Now, is there anybody here that thinks that's a bad idea? And for those of you that are concerned about the 120,000 roughly IRS agents, we already have a plan for them.
Get work done.
Pardon?
I know the job.
Well, you know, it's a little difficult sometimes to get rid of people in Washington. So what we're going to do is we're going to shift them over to Homeland Defense and put them to work tracking terrorists instead of tracking American citizens. Okay? I mean, they've made Americans miserable for over 100 years. The least they can do is make the enemies of America miserable for a period of time. We get rid of 75,000 pages of regulation. That's actually almost 78,000 now. But nobody in the country understands the whole tax code. There are people who understand portions of it, but no living human being understands and can apply with certainty the whole tax code. It is beyond the ability of any single person to do. And even more importantly, the IRS will tell you, if you call them up and ask them a question, they'll say, well, this is what I think it is. And then if you say, well, can I count on that? And they'll say, well, no, because somebody else may have a different interpretation. And if they decide that what I told you is wrong, you're the one who's going to pay the penalty. I mean, it's a catch-22. There's nobody you can call that can give you a definitive answer. and yet you're responsible for complying with something that is beyond human comprehension.